My name is Rohan Salvi. I work as Associate Director. In my current role, I'm responsible for pre-sales and business development functions for Verdantis. I have 18 plus years in the field of master data management and primarily focused on the master data related issues for asset intensive organizations. And generally the customer base for our organization has been global Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies.
Okay.
Pleasure to connect with you. I'm looking forward to today's session.
Right. I'm Smruthi. I'm a tech journalist at Analytics India magazine. Before this, I used to work as an energy reporter. So this is in your MRO survey. 51% cited data quality issues. How many enterprises do you believe that AI can fix those issues end to end?
So when we speak with prospects, we see a growing acceptance towards AI. Of course, there are a few industries that are heavily regulated and controlled, where the information cannot really feed into AI. They are also coming up with their own AI programs when it comes to managing such initiatives, but with a controlled environment, right? So the data doesn't go really out. But then more and more customers in manufacturing, in oil and gas, in food industry are showing a lot of intent towards adopting ready-made AI agents rather than developing their own. So from an industry perspective, we do see an acceptance towards everyone has accepted it's the future, but there is only in the controlled area, that's where we see that this is probably taken up with a pinch of salt.
Right. You also mentioned that enterprises spent $18 billion plus on ERP systems. Would production teams report deep efficiency bottlenecks still? Is the problem technological, cultural, or architectural? How would you differentiate it?
So again, the ERPs are primarily built around maintaining the operational data. Okay? They are generally very traditional softwares where they have predefined processes which are then adaptable for all industries. Whereas when it comes to the technology, because it is already set up in a predefined framework, the ERPs find it very difficult to move towards adopting something as recent as AI. Yes, almost all the ERP providers are having their AI programs where they're bringing in AI to meet the exact use cases. But when it comes to the end-to-end process, because of the frameworks that have been built maybe a couple of years ago, or maybe at times couple of decades ago, it's a rigid structure within which they have to work. So from a technology standpoint, the bottleneck is more on how do we imbibe the latest solutions into the current framework. That is where I think the current struggle is, because the problems have been there for many years now. Okay. The only thing is, with the emergence of Agentic AI, we are seeing some viable solutions which are or scalable solutions which have come up very quickly. Now, how do the ERPs embrace that? That is the concern or question.
Right. What percentage of clients also insist their ERP or EAM system is a single source of truth, even when the underlying data is inconsistent?
I mean, all customers, believe, or rather, from an operational standpoint, that is the data with which the entire operations or maintenance processes are running, right? So essentially, the data which comes from the ERP system is the single version of truth, single source of truth for businesses. But because they have such a siloed structure, where there are multiple departments who are managing multiple different modules of the same ERP system. Because of that siloed structure, one department's version of truth might be different from another department's version of truth. Okay? Right. Because of which sharing of different codes, sharing of different master data objects becomes a challenge. And that's where getting that global unified single version of truth becomes a need for organizations. And there are merger of acquisitions as well, right? So when you have mergers happening, there are data sets that come from two different companies who have their own ways of doing things. So for such initiatives as well, there is a need to establish one unified vision. Maybe it is the acquiring company that generally drives the thought process, but these are some of the initiatives where it becomes essential to use the existing data models and then arrive at that desired single version of truth.
Right. Are these enterprises also looking beyond co-pilots to full agents, and what risks do they fear? Is it hallucination, compliance, or audibility?
Perfect. So, few things, right? So, there are quite of interesting terms that you use. I'll try to address one by one. So, Copilot, I think I have seen a lot of adoption towards Copilot. Almost every prospect that we speak with, they are using Copilot in some or other capacity. But then a need-based AI agent, which focuses on specific aspects of the functional use cases, that is also happening very frequently, where customers recognize that Copilot, while it might be an AI tool that is available, accessible for generic scenarios, there are specialized agents that address a specific use case really well. Okay? And the accuracy is high in those cases. So they are looking at using those agents, because we are often asked the question, what is the AI framework that you're using for this use case? Second is, when it comes to the risk, right, risk assessment, most of the customers fear that their data should not be used to train the GPTs. Okay. Right. So that is a common scenario where you have to have a corporate contract with the GPTs that the information that you are pushing on the GPT should not be shared or used by the GPT to train their global models. Then on the hallucinations, yes, there is a huge I would say concern regarding the generated results or hallucinations, as we call it, because now when it comes to our organization, we are primarily dealing with master data. Okay, that is kind of a backbone for an organization. Now, when you have hallucinations that feed into the master data, these downstream processes which depend on reliability of that information becomes a challenge. So that is where the reliability has to be 100%. They cannot compromise on that. Because of which hallucinations kind of act as a deterrent to adoption of AI to some extent. So there is always a need. Every time you have an AI agent discussion happening, people are asking a question, how are you overcoming the hallucinations? That is very important.
Right. For companies with long-standing ERP investments, how receptive are they to retrofitting agentic overlays versus replacing legacy stacks?
Okay. So, from the ERP system perspective, I think replacing an ERP system is a huge project. So, you don't see that happening quite often unless it is really mandated by, SAP has mandated that now you need to move to S4 and they're going to stop supporting your existing ERP. Well, that kind of becomes a real mandate that is, out from, outbound. Now, on the other cases, there are a lot of data warehouse tools or BI tools that are being looked at. That this is somewhere that we can also host the information outside of the ERP to run the additional analytics to get the use cases set up.
Right.
Apart from just being completely reliant on the reports and queries that are built in the ERP. So that is where we see a lot of customers moving towards.
Okay. In your experience, is data the problem, like more structural data is the problem, or procedural? Procedural in the sense no ownership or no governance?
So, I think from a system perspective, system is as good as the user, right? So, there are, all the ERP systems, if used correctly, work perfectly. Okay. So certainly from a process perspective, how do you, ensure that there is a 100% adoption from the end user to the desired process is what is the gap today. Okay. We see quite often that users have the right means of, entering the right data points into the system, but it is encumbersome, so they take a shortcut or they enter information that is sufficient for them, which renders the eventual record not usable outside of the department or by anyone else apart from the user.
Right.
Now, here it is important that the user is also empowered by maybe agents, AI agents, or some processes, some tooltips, where he is, given a visibility in terms of, okay, why a particular information is really essential from an optimization standpoint. Also, there should be a provision to reduce the input effort that the user has to make.
Right.
So that, see, the path of least resistance is the path that we generally take. So if we create an adoption with the path of least resistance, users would generally then be able to use the systems and get the right information into the systems.
Right. What surprised you the most in the survey? Was it low data readiness or low awareness of the problem itself?
I think both. Okay. From the data readiness perspective, I think we have seen some really mature organizations that have, taken the data journey well over a decade back, where they have, set up everything. The governance framework is there. They have, put in the necessary effort in building that data steward or master data teams who are governing and maintaining the data centrally. And, these teams are then supporting it to the external businesses. But then, yes, there are a lot of organizations which were very focused on making profit through the operational processes rather than the data piece of it. So there we generally see awareness about the data not being there, and this is generally happening where you have I would say disparate spread of the organization, where it is spread across the globe. Every unit maybe at times are using 20 different ERPs, and each ERP is dedicated towards one local facility or a couple of local facilities. So then it becomes the awareness about the overall data sanctity is very limited because they have a restricted view.
Right. For the organizations you've enabled, what fraction truly transition from reactive to predictive MRO process?
Perfect. So when it comes to reactive, a lot of it is attributed towards not having the most up-to-date information in the system. A lot of times users enter the information, but that gets updated as time progresses. Because in MRO, when an asset is originally set up, when an equipment is set up, the user would generally enter all the required details. But as that whole equipment undergoes a maintenance process, things change in the market, right? Like many things get discontinued. There are upgrades to parts that were previously used, so they need to use the new upgraded parts to maintain the same equipment. Okay, some of the processes get upgraded. Now, not having all of this information captured on an ongoing basis is what makes the maintenance reactive. Because then you go out and you try to get something and realize that it is now discontinued. And now you have to go out and find something that is more suited. Although you had placed an order 3 months back. But at the time of maintenance, you end up waiting for the part to arrive simply because the vendor is giving us the notification that it is not available in the market. So, yeah, I think from a predictive maintenance perspective, getting the right information in, assessing the current market situation, and then feeding that into the asset management platform really makes the preventive or predictive maintenance effective.
Right. Have any of your clients quantified efficiency gains post cleaning? Have they noticed any reduced procurement cycle or inventory savings?
Sure. So one of the most quantified KPI that we have received is when it comes to once you have a robust governance solution in place which has all the bells and whistles to support the end user adoption, 60% reduction in the turnaround time for from the start of a demand to receipt of the actual product is what the customers have observed, and that directly translates to improved productivity, because now you have the right things at the right time. You are able to conduct your repairs and maintenances within the scheduled windows without compromising on what really needs to be set up in the equipment. So this is one of the most common KPIs.
Right. Among the customers, which function sponsors MRO data projects most? IT, supply chain, or plant operations?
It is generally supply chain and procurement, of course, in it, because when it comes to the success measurement of supply chain and procurement, it is dependent on the quality of data. See, from a plant operations perspective, if I need something, I need it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care whether I get it for $100 or whether I get it for $105. That is a burden that is always taken up by supply chain and procurement. They have to get things at the optimum rates. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then there are long-standing system implementations, like a governance system needs to be applied, and that would also be sponsored by IT, because they are responsible for the systems across the organization, where while procurement and supply or plant maintenance would be the business, IT would be the sponsor in those cases. Like ERP upgrade, right? ERP upgrade is generally owned by IT.
Right. Do clients approach Verdantis after ERP implementation fails or before they modernize systems?
Both.
Okay.
Because quite often they realize that this is a need while they are setting up everything, like budgeting as well for the ERP. This is identified as a need because you can't just the way I like to call it, you can't buy a gun without knowing the bullets. Okay? So you have to make sure that it fits well. But then yes, a lot of times data from one system is just transformed into the new ERP system because of time constraint, whatever is the reason. But then after the data fits into the new system, things stop moving as smoothly as they should. That's where customers realize the need to cleanse the data. So post ERP implementation as well, as a process improvement, we have seen customers approaching us to run this because they observe the existing gaps.
How would you convince operational or maintenance teams to adopt AI-driven master data routines when they're used to very manual fixes?
I think the answer is creating the path of least resistance. When you just show them or demonstrate to them how they can achieve the desired results at much faster pace as compared to what their current practice is, that is when they get that wow and they are ready to adopt into the technology.
This might be my last question, but will the future of enterprise AI be led by consulting-driven builders or big cloud-native platforms?
So, I think only the beauty behind the AI development is you don't really need a huge team to do it. Rather, you need to have a focus on what is the problem case at hand, and that's where the consultative approach kind of excels, and that's my answer.
Is there something that you want to add from the survey that you found was interesting, or something that I've missed?
So maybe a summary of things that we discussed would be while the adoption to the AI is often challenged by several things like hallucination, like data privacy, exposing your IP externally. There is definitely a growing need for incorporating AI into your current program for sustenance. It's more on the survival mode that organizations are now adopting to AI, and it is rapidly deploying across multiple wings within the functional locations. But then when it comes to the MRO, things like predictive maintenance, good demand forecasting, these are these are processes that traditionally have not been tapped that well. The explosion of AI is the essential opportunity to tap into these opportunities or unexplored or uncharted waters. So I think that's the thought with which I'll close my comments.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. The survey and your conversation also was very insightful.
Thank you, Shruti. Have a good day ahead.
Bye bye.